Good afternoon, students. Welcome to our fourth day of our second week's discussion. So, I hope that you will listen carefully to the topic that we will discuss this afternoon. But before that, let's have an activity first. So, I have here 5 pictures. Now, I want you to describe or identify what does this picture means or shows. So, you only have 1 minute to answer this activity. So you may start now. Okay, time is up. Let's answer the activity. So for number 1, you can see that there is a boy which is covering his ears so that he can't hear the sound of the bell. For number 2, we can see that the boy is using a magnifying glass so that he can see clearly. And for the number 3, we can see that there is a nose that is trying to smell something. And for number 4, we can see that there are 2 hands that is touching with each other. And for number 5, we can see that there is a tongue out of its mouth that is trying to taste something. So, based on the pictures that we described or identified, what do you think is our lesson for today? Anyone? Okay, that is right. Our lesson for today is all about sensory images or sensory imagery. Our topic for today is all about sensory imagery or sensory images. So what is sensory imagery or sensory images? So in definition, it is a language that appeals to our readers' 5 senses, which are sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. So for example, this desk has a hard, smooth surface. So the underlined words there, which is hard, smooth surface, is being used in order for us to identify that the imagery or the sensory imagery or sensory images being used is touch. Next, the light, flowery scent of my sister's perfume invaded my nostrils. So again, the underlined word, which is flowery scent of my sister's perfume, is used to identify that the sensory imagery or sensory images being used is smell. Then third, as I carefully swallowed each delicious morsel, I savored the rich and creamy chocolate bar. So the underlined swallowed each delicious morsel is used that the sensory image or sensory images being used is taste. Then fourth, brightly colored hot air balloons fill the clear sky. So the brightly colored hot air balloons is used to identify that the sensory image is sight being used in the sentence. So lastly, the campfire crackled quietly in the night. So the underlined campfire crackled quietly is used in order to identify that the sensory images being used is sound. Okay, so let's proceed. Now, let us understand one by one the 5 sensory images. So first is sight or visual. So it appeals to the sense of seeing. So in this sense, we need to use our eyes. Second, sound or auditory. So it appeals to the sense of hearing. So in this sense, we need to use our ears for us to hear. Okay, next. Third is smell or olfactory, which appeals to the sense of smelling. So in this sense, we need to use our nose in order for us to smell. Fourth, touch or tactile. So it appeals to the sense of feeling. So in order for us to feel, we need to use our body, just like for example our hands or our feet. Then lastly, we have taste or gustatory. So it appeals to the sense of taste. So in order for us to taste, we need to use our tongue. So we can taste everything that is tasteable. Here are examples of sensory words. So first, which is sound. So the example of sound are whizzing, rustling, pounding, rumbling, whining, scraping, muffled, gurgling, and crispy. For the smell, we have fresh, stale, moldy, burnt, rotten, salty, spicy, vile, sweaty. Next, touch, we have silky, rusty, spongy, sticky, delicate, prickly, greasy, slippery, slimy. For the taste, we have bitter, sweet, sour, spicy, salty, bland, tangy, tart, nutty. Then sight, we have messy, crowded, deserted, healthy, heavy, clean, tidy, ancient, and peaceful. That is an example of the sensory words. Now for the examples of sensory details, first we have sight. So the example of sight is the muddy socks were piled on the top of the rug. So next, sound. The bustling sound filled the air. Then touch. The mud felt slimy and cold between my toes. Then fourth, taste. The pizza tasted like cardboard. Then lastly, the smell. Her perfume smelled like flowers and vanilla. So those are an example of sensory details. Now let's have an activity. So for your activity 1, make sense to me. So pick out at least 10 sentences from the myth Gergen's head that shows sensory images and identify the senses to which these statements appeal. So you can write your answers directly on the K-12 e-learning site. So let's move to the next activity. Now for your next activity, I want you to identify the sensory images being used in the following statements. So first, we watched the movie together. Second, the volume of the music is very high. Third, when I ate the spaghetti, it tasted so delicious. Fourth, my teacher uses a perfume which is an aficionado. Then lastly, fifth, the baby was very hot when the mother put her in her arms. So you can answer it directly on the K-12 e-learning site after this session or this discussion. Now for your last activity for today's discussion, I want you to use the following sensory images in a sentence. So we have 5 sensory images, right? So these are the sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. So you can answer directly this on your K-12 e-learning site. Okay, thank you for listening for today's discussion and God bless you.